Today, we'll discuss the tragic events that unfolded in North Carolina in 2011. The investigation was a complex and multifaceted process that demanded high professionalism, experience, and the ability to think outside the box. Investigators faced numerous challenges, including a lack of information, opposition from suspects or witnesses, and limited time and resources. When 27-year-old Laura Ackerson stopped contacting her family and friends, authorities quickly suspected foul play. As the investigation progressed, it became clear this was one of the most horrific cases they had ever encountered. The police had to travel across the country, covering more than 1,200 miles, to uncover the truth. The case could have remained unsolved, but fortunately, surveillance cameras provided crucial evidence that helped establish the cause of Laura's mysterious disappearance. Laura Zhang Ackerson was born on April 30, 1984, to Roger and Brenda Ackerson in Hastings, Michigan, a small city in rural Berry County. She was one of 7 children, including her father's son Jason, who was 3 years older. When Laura was a toddler, Roger and Brenda separated, leading to a contentious battle filled with unsubstantiated allegations and emotional scars that fractured family relationships. In 1996, Laura and her mother Brenda moved to Iowa, where Laura graduated from Linville-Sully High School. She later moved to Kinston, North Carolina, where she worked as a businesswoman in graphic design. By 2011, 27-year-old Laura was the mother of 2 sons, one 3 years old and the other 2. The children's father was a singer and songwriter named Grant Hayes. To understand this story fully, we need to delve deeper into the relationship between Grant and Laura. Grant was born to Patty and Grant Hayes Jr. on April 30, 1979. According to his mother, Grant was a sweet and docile child. In high school, his charm and guitar skills made him popular, and he performed on the Raleigh nightclub scene as a teenager. At 18, he married a ballerina named Emily Lears and moved to Greenville, North Carolina. She inspired many of his songs, but their relationship quickly fell apart, leading Grant to seek psychiatric treatment and medications for depression and bipolar disorder, including lithium. Grant then moved back to Raleigh, where his religious upbringing remained evident. He attended church regularly, prayed daily, and studied the Bible faithfully until 2003. However, his religious fervor shifted to an obsession with Tupac Shakur's music, learning all of Tupac's lyrics and relating tales from Tupac's life. During this period, Grant began drinking alcohol and using illegal substances. Life with Grant became simply unbearable for Laura. On the day she decided to leave him, she felt unwell and sought medical help. That's how Laura found out she was pregnant for the second time. Thus, she decided to give their relationship another chance. Their second son was born 2 months premature on St. Thomas on August 3, 2009. Grant decided to name him Gentle. Now that Laura was the mother of 2, she wanted more financial stability and grew frustrated that Grant was hanging on to an empty dream. She still believed in Grant's talent, but he wasn't making headway toward turning it into a reliable source of income. She wanted him to return to reality and accept financial and emotional responsibility for their 2 children, but Grant was not going to change. He continued to drink alcohol and use illegal substances and was in relationships with other women. One of these women was Amanda Perry. Amanda Perry Tucker was born 7 years before Grant Hayes on April 8, 1972. In 1989, Amanda gave birth to a daughter, Shaw, but the relationship with the father of her child did not last long. In 1998, Amanda got married for the second time, but the marriage was short-lived. In October 2000, her husband died from injuries sustained in a fall from a significant height. After getting her film and television degree, Amanda knew she had to go to Los Angeles. That's where the work that she wanted to do was centered. She scored some small parts out there. Among her credits were television shows like The Stepford Wives, The Sopranos, Dexter, and Twins. Amanda was out on a date when she first saw Grant Hayes performing at the Parrot Club. She didn't see him again for another 6 months. Then one night she saw Grant Hayes again. They talked, and he gave her one of his C discs. Amanda felt their connection was instant and electric. As a play to get to know him better, Amanda asked him to teach her how to play the guitar, and Grant agreed. She told Shaw about the lessons and described her teacher as a performer who sounded like Darius Rucker, the lead singer and rhythm guitarist for the Grammy Award-winning group Hoopty and the Blowfish. Grant and Amanda were married in Vegas on April 10, 2010. Yet at this very time, Laura considered herself Grant's wife. Laura was stunned when Grant sent her a photograph of his Las Vegas wedding along with a message that he and Laura had never really been married because he hadn't signed the paperwork. She rummaged around in her papers and finally found their certificate of marriage. Laura stared dumbfounded at the piece of paper he never signed. The marriage certificate without his signature was not legally binding. She never had been Grant's wife. She had two sons with him, but had no tie that binds. But that wasn't the only terrible surprise Grant had in store for Laura. Grant and Amanda settled in Raleigh, and Laura lived in Kinston about 80 miles away. Grant decided to get custody of their two sons and went to court. You probably think that no judge would grant custody of children to a man like Hayes, but don't jump to conclusions. Grant had filed an ex parte motion, telling Judge Les Turner that Laura was an unfit mother. An ex parte decision is one decided by a judge without requiring all of the parties to the dispute to be present. Grant alleged that Laura purchased a Craigslist ad looking for someone to live with her at no cost. Grant's lawyer suggested that Laura was ready to trade intimacy for housing. Grant also claimed that Laura used his checking account to pay for a subscription to a website called Sugar Daddies, without any opportunity to appear, object, or fight for her boys. The court accepted him at his word, awarding Grant full temporary emergency custody of the children on June 15, 2010. Laura was served the emergency ex parte custody motion 2 days later. With paperwork in hand, Laura met with attorney John Sargent. When Laura finally got her day in court for a return hearing on June 25th, Judge Beth Heath had to decide whether to keep the emergency order in effect or to put some other arrangement in place. Laura did not look very stable to the judge. She had no permanent place to live and didn't have a job. Offsetting that was Laura's allegation that Grant was a substance abuser. The attorneys met with the judge in chambers and reached an agreement. The children would remain with Grant during the week, but would be with Laura on the weekends. They would make the exchange at a public place in Wilson, about halfway between their two residences. The judge also ordered a full psychological review of Grant, Laura, and the boys because of the dueling charges about the issue of character and behavior. Additionally, Grant would be the one responsible for covering the upfront cost of the evaluation. A handwritten consent agreement put everything in place. Provisions were made for phone communication, allowing for reasonable contact when the boys were with the other party. No more than twice a day, and 15 minutes or less in duration between the hours of 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. Other conditions were that neither party would get a passport for the children or remove them from the state of North Carolina while the order was in effect. The meeting place established for the exchange of the children was the Sheetz gas station and convenience store near the intersection of Interstate 95 and US 264 in Wilson, about halfway between Raleigh and Kinston. Laura filled her weekends with the boys with trips to the playground and nature parks. They did arts and craft projects together. One night of each visit was pizza night. Together, they built little pizzas and popped them in the oven. Grant had a lot of complaints about the new court order arrangement. In a Facebook message to his friend Crystal Wiggins, he wrote, "I'm very happy. Stress from the whole custody arrangement and what it is doing to my boys. Their mom is a woman scorned and, well, making life for me as difficult as possible. My wife is going to New York to clean out our place and put it on the market." When Crystal responded with regret that things did not work out with his wife, Grant fired back, "My wife. I was never married to my kid's mother. My wife now is awesome." He continued grousing that the custody arrangement made it impossible for him to leave the state, and his rent in New York had been paid up front for a year. In addition to disputes with Grant, Laura now had conflicts with his wife Amanda Hayes and the latter's daughter Shaw. At one point, Laura's sons told her they had spent the whole day with Shaw. She later called the girl and said, "Stop raising my children. They have a mother and father, and it's not your job to raise them." Amanda was furious at Laura. She told her, "Never call my daughter again." It's also in his Durango, and made the drive down to the Sheets in Wilson. He knew that place had surveillance cameras installed, so he went in and out of the store several times to confirm that Laura did not show up for the meeting. Before arriving at the gas station in Wilson, Grant visited Walmart for the second time, where he paid cash for 3 black and 3 red duffel bags. Minutes before 2 p.m., Grant sent a message to Laura's email complaining about not being able to reach her on her cell. "This is not cool," he wrote. Grant shopped at Walmart again on Saturday morning, July 16, 2011, at 6:56 a.m. He bought a 120-quart cooler and 3 bags of ice. After loading them into the Durango, Grant went back inside and returned 3 of the 6 duffel bags he'd purchased the day before. Then he bought a 75-quart cooler and made a stop at the in-store McDonald's. At 10:59 a.m., Grant walked into a U-Haul facility in Raleigh. He did not look the least bit worried, hurried, or alarmed. Under the name Grant Hayes, he rented a trailer for $159. He also bought boxes, a sofa cover, a log, and a ball mount and ball for his Durango to enable him to haul the trailer for an additional charge of $100. That night, pulling the rental behind his car, he made a trip to the Target a mile from his apartment. At 8:10 p.m., he purchased 2 Igloo Max cold-wheeled coolers, one 75 quarts, the other 50 quarts. He put them into the trailer and returned to the store, where he bought a toilet brush and paper towels. That Saturday night, at midnight, Amanda, Grant, and the 3 children set out for Texas, a journey of 1,200 miles, an arduous
undertaking with 3 little kids on board. About 8 hours later, the Durango pulled into a Motel 6 in Montgomery, Alabama. Not quite halfway through their cross-country journey, Amanda paid $40 in cash for a room and registered as Amanda Smith. She and Grant slept for a few hours before heading west to Texas. The investigators learned that Amanda Hayes had a sister. Her name was Karen Berry, and she lived in Richmond, Texas. When the officers knocked on Karen's door, she was already waiting for them. Amanda and Grant were no longer there, Karen said. Karen said that she had a conversation with her sister, from which she learned that Grant and Amanda had done something terrible to Laura. Amanda said, "Laura is dead." Karen looked at her little sister's face, seeking answers, but afraid to find them. Amanda asked if there was any property that had a big hole in it. Grant and Amanda kept asking a bewildered Karen about deep places, and finally, she said, "There's a septic tank in the back." But as Karen and Amanda headed that way, suspicion smacked up against Karen's denial. "I don't think this is a good idea. One day this house might belong to one of my kids. It's not a good idea at all," she said, and headed back to the house. Grant told Karen he needed some acid and asked if there was a Home Depot nearby. Karen gave him directions and let Amanda borrow a vehicle to drive there. At 9:37 a.m., Amanda Hayes walked to a drive-up ATM in a strip shopping center and made a withdrawal. A little after 10, in that same shopping center, Grant entered the Home Depot wearing a dark shirt and pants. Grant purchased gloves, a 32-gallon plastic trash can, and muriatic acid for a total of $69. Amanda and Grant were planning to get rid of the remains with the help of that acid, but they didn't succeed. So Amanda poured the acid out by stopping her pickup truck at the side of the road. They needed a new plan. Amanda asked her sister for permission to take the boat tied up at the edge of Oyster Creek. She also asked Karen if there were any alligators there. A special team of divers from Houston searched for Laura in Oyster Creek a few days later. They found several separate body fragments. Soon after, the examination confirmed that the remains found belonged to Laura Ackerson. Grant and Amanda Hayes were they worried about going to prison. They made terrible decisions, and Amanda took charge of the situation and sent Grant out. That night, he went and got some money. He went to Walmart hours after Laura's death and bought a saw. The next morning, Amanda called her daughter Shaw and said, "Come get these children. Come get the boys out of the house." And Shaw did it and left Amanda and Grant with Laura Ackerson's body and the saw in the house. FBI forensic document examiner Lindsay then examined the note in which Laura gave up custody of her boys in exchange for $225,000. She determined that the top part was in Grant's handwriting, and the bottom part was in Laura's. However, she could not determine who had written Laura's signature. The defense tried to press her on the latter point, but she insisted that she could reach no conclusion about that signature. We'll never know what really happened in Amanda and Grant's apartment. The exact cause of Laura's death was never determined because of what they did with her body. However, Grant's cellmate, who testified at the trial, said Grant confessed to him that he and Amanda lured Laura into the apartment where they strangled her and then did the rest. On September 16, 2013, Grant Hayes was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. On February 18, 2014, Amanda Hayes was found guilty of second-degree murder. The court sentenced her to 13 to 16 years. 4 years later, in Texas, Amanda was sentenced to 20 additional years in prison. "This case is about a man covering up his wife's actions," he said. On July 13th, Amanda Hayes killed Laura Ackerson during the fight. "It wasn't something that was planned. It was something that happened on July 13th, Durham said. Laura Ackerson goes to Grant's house as she's done many times before, and she gets there, and they are talking about the custody case and talking about how much money they spend on it. And somehow, a joke about how much money has been spent becomes an agreement. And you'll see that agreement," he said, referring to the piece of paper found in the Hayes apartment. They agreed to end the custody dispute. This is what Grant wanted. He wanted custody of his kids, and he was ecstatic. But standing 3 feet away was Amanda Hayes, and her husband had just agreed to give his ex-girlfriend $225,000, and they didn't know exactly where they were to get it from yet, and she was angry about it. Grant went to go to get the kids ready for the special visit. Something happened, and we don't know exactly what that was, but we do know what Amanda Hayes tells her sister 5 or 6 days later about what happened. "Amanda did something serious, and Amanda tells her sister that I hurt Laura. I hurt her bad." Now, what happens next are the terrible decisions of people who are terrifying. Grant and Amanda started making terrible decisions because they were afraid to call the police. They were afraid that no one was going to believe what had happened wasn't intentional. Thanks for watching this video, so please like, subscribe and share with friends.